Move in with your person before you get married. I have been living with my boyfriend for a year and a half now, and as an independent girly who loves her solitude, let me give you 5 reasons why I think it's important to move in with your person before you get married. Hi friends, my name is Aubri Ebony Williams, your friend with her master's in marriage and couple family counseling. So I'm going to give you a personal perspective, but through a marriage counselor, marriage therapist lens. Let's get into it. The biggest one for me is that you figure out each other's lifestyle habits. You get an idea of this person's, organizational skills and cleaning habits. Are they a kitchen cleaner? Do they hate doing the dishes? Are they good at laundry? Are they bad at laundry? How are their clothes in the closet? Like, does it bother you? Your lifestyle habits are very much uncovered when you live together because you're trying to find ways to blend your way of doing things with another person's way of doing things. For example, my boyfriend has always been a night shower person. I have never really been a night shower person. I've always been a morning shower person, but being in the relationship before we go to bed, showering before we go to bed collectively makes the most sense, right? So that's a lifestyle choice that I feel like I wouldn't have really uncovered the importance and understanding of it had we not lived together. All the little things that matter in a person's day-to-day lifestyle, you really do get a front view, a front seat to how it is they navigate life on their day-to-day. And I think that is so important going into a marriage instead of finding out after you get married. This one's going to sound so minuscule, but sleep patterns, that is so important in my opinion. I think that 2 people being rested and having a good night's sleep is so important to how they navigate not just their day, but the relationship with each other. If you're tired and restless and cranky because you don't sleep well, then that's probably going to play a role in your relationship. If you are a late sleeper and you sleep till 11 noon, but your person wakes up at 6:30, there's going to be a difference that you have to kind of compromise on or find a place in the middle, or just accept that you have 2 different sleep patterns. I also think that people overestimate sleep because they think it's just okay, lights out, good morning. But there is something very important about that connected element, that wind down, that intimacy that is shared at bedtime that I feel like is very important to be on the same page about. So if you're the person that gets in bed at 9:30, but your person doesn't get in bed until midnight, are you resentful? Do you miss them? Does it cause conflict or tension? Do you feel alone or disconnected? And so that is why I feel like understanding your person's sleep pattern matters. When you're not living together, anybody can say, oh, I'm headed to sleep, or, I'm just waking up, good morning. And you kind of get a snapshot or a preview ideally of what their life is like in that regard. But just because somebody says good morning at 9 a.m. doesn't mean they woke up at 9 a.m. They could have woke up at 5 a.m. and had a whole plethora of things done by 9. Meanwhile, if you're the kind of person that sleeps till noon and you're like, oh man, sorry, just getting up, saw that you texted me a couple hours ago, good morning. But this person is like deep into their day at this point, So understanding each other's sleep pattern, I think is very important, especially when you consider marriage. Now, I know we talked about lifestyle habits, but perspective is a very different thing. And that's why I put it at number 3 for one of the reasons I think it's important to live with your person before you get married. Is because you're going to get a very strong understanding of their perspective of the world. And you can get that through text messages and dates and spending time. But if the beginning period is just la la land and love and romance and putting our best foot forward, then a lot of times our perspectives aren't as strong because we're trying to find ways to meet in the middle to get the relationship to grow. It's not until you step foot in the same household day to day that you understand that this is this person's point of view. This is how this person sees the world. And you might not see the world the same, but at this point, while you're working through that in the relationship, you're finding a common ground. You're finding an understanding or getting a better understanding of one another. And I think understanding each other's perspectives and how you see the world, how you think about life, that is so important to know before you say, I do. And so when you're living with your person, you really do get an idea of how they see everything, how they navigate things, their job conflicts, their responsibilities, their perspectives on how they tackle the world. You get a strong view of it when you're living with your person. And I just think that is something you should know before you get married. This is the biggest one, and it really should be number 1, but I'm putting it at number 4, is you understand or you get an idea of how the 2 of you will resolve conflict when you live together before you are married. Now, let's say you decide not to move in with your person until after you get married, right? Now you guys have this big blow up, this big conflict, and now you're married and you're stuck figuring out how to resolve or work through this conflict. Now, if you live together prior to getting married and you have a conflict, your conflict resolution skills should be growing together as the time goes on. So that way, when you say I do, now the marriage is a lot easier because you've worked through all the kinks. My boyfriend and I, we had a conflict recently and we had a difference in opinion, which happens. You are two different people. You will have different opinions on something. However, how we resolve the conflict is the biggest indicator of how we will resolve our conflict in marriage. And so I'm very adamant about conflict resolution. We do our best. We don't yell at each other. We don't call each other names. There is no physicality. There's always respect and a listening to the other person's point of view. And that's important when resolving conflict because you want to get to a space where no matter the issue, you can talk it out. So communication is kind of that like foundation underneath to resolving conflict. And again, when you live with each other, you have no choice but to communicate with each other. Yeah, we disagreed on that yesterday, but we still have dinner tonight with each other like we have tomorrow and the day after. And so, you really understand if you can work through conflict together when living together. And that is something that is a quality about your relationship that you definitely want to grow and have solid and strong before you get married. Now, again, you don't have to move in with this person, but when you are living with your person and conflict arises, that is the best training ground for conflict resolution skills. And again, it's just something I think should be developed before you get married. Now, this one's for the grown folks, but intimacy, and I'm talking like adult activity. When you live together, I think that topic is so tricky because there's ebbs and flows of both people's hormones, and there's desires, and there's, drives, and sometimes there's conflicts, there's turnoffs, or there's, longing. There's a variety of words that, are under the umbrella of intimacy. But when you live together, you get a very good flow of how to balance sex, how to balance intimacy, how to balance that passion so that no person feels pressured, because you don't want those times at night to feel like pressure or like you have to do it or anything within that realm. And so I think that is one of the strongest indicators that a marriage is going to work is when you have a good balance about your levels of intimacy, especially when you are living together. Okay. People are going to want things, both people. You're going to want something. They're going to want something. And somebody might not want to do something at a certain time, but it's understanding the ebbs and flows and working through the times that are good for both of you too, so that you find that comfort and that like solace in that level of intimacy that you guys are building. So lifestyle habits, sleep patterns, intimacy balances, conflict resolution, and life perspectives are just some of the few things that I feel like I've learned deeply about my partner and about myself and how we work together in those topics as we're developing our relationship before we move into marriage. I can't imagine sitting in a honeymoon phase or a distant relationship phase or, the inability to spend an aggressive amount of time together to build, to then say, I do. And then now that you're saying I do, now you're finding out you have differences in conflict resolution, differences in lifestyle habits. Your sleep patterns are very different, right? Like your lifestyle habits are very different, and your intimacy levels, all the things are very different than you thought it was going to be when you got married, which is why I feel like sometimes newlyweds, they get in quite a few tiffs from time to time, in the beginning of the marriage, because they're figuring out ways to join each other. And I think that union should happen in the relationship before you say, I do. You will save a lot more time. You'll alleviate a lot of headaches. And ideally, you will have a stronger marriage if you go into a relationship with the idea that I'm going to work out all the kinks that I want to have worked out before I get into a marriage, instead of just dating casually or, seeing each other and being committed to each other, but not taking those finite steps until you get married. Then that's a whole separate chapter. That marriage, in my opinion, should be about the celebration and the joining of two people. However, if these two people have not done the digging and have not done the work to make sure that their relationship is solid in the areas that matter, then moving in together looks beautiful and glamorous. But when you're sleeping until 11 and they're annoyed because they've been up since 6 a.m. and they're like, what is she doing? Now we have a problem. Those are just some of the reasons why I feel like it's important to live with your person before you get married. I think in the big age of 30s, it's super important to knock out all these little things that we need to knock out so that we can have the best marriage and the best relationship going forward. And we can't guess that these things are going to be great when we say I do. We have to know. Okay. And moving in is not for everybody. It might not be everybody's situation, but if you get the opportunity or if the situation presents itself, and you feel strongly about the person and the person feels strongly about you and you have the desire to make that commitment with that person, then yes, move in together and work through those kinks. So that way, by the time you're 2 years in, 3 years into living with each other, you're practically married, and the marriage element and the marriage aspect should be a lot easier than waiting until you get married to move in and uncover those things that you didn't know. Okay? Well, that's my little tidbit of advice, y'all. My name is Aubri again. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like all things self-love and healthy love, please subscribe. I love to talk about good things and create things that center around relationships and positive relationships. I'm not here for the toxicity, though we can get into it. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.